Excellent evening. Welcome once again to our weekly health talk, where we want to encourage each person to create a healthier lifestyle or create a path for a healthier lifestyle. My name is Kerry-Ann Joseph-McLean, my business partner, life partner, husband, and health enthusiast. That's what we call ourselves. That's what we're claiming. We are so passionate. We just want to be proactive and to be able to share the information that we have gathered and the things that we have been able to impart on others by our research. And so, just to make it clear, we are not health practitioners. We are health enthusiasts. So, we want to be able to create a community of like minded individuals who want to be able to share knowledge, not just on one particular area, but different areas of the health aspect. Because, as a friend of ours who's a functional medicine practitioner, or he has a practice, he states, we are the doctors of the future. We get to delve into our own, symptoms, things that are happening with us that we are able now to better articulate to our doctors. Because most doctors, they study through the traditional means of pharmaceuticals. And of course, they give you the best educated advice. You have naturopathics, you have different nutritionists, you have different people in that area who can help give you the most educated guess based on the knowledge that they have. And sometimes it's limited and they continue to evolve. So you evolving as an individual, learning about your own health is super, super important. And I had to learn that, especially through different seasons in my life. Sickness, illness, of course, we have death in the family, death happens. And just wanted to be proactive. So for those of you who are, joining us every single week, we appreciate you. For those of you who are new to this platform, feel free to invite as many people as you like, because you want to be able to build a community of individuals who are empowered to improve their health. And so as I share this week with you, just keep in mind as well, this weekly health talk happens every single Tuesday. We've done this for over almost actually a year now. It's been 2 weeks, a year and 2 weeks since we've been doing this. So I'm so very proud of each and every one of you for coming and committing the time to be here, because you could have been doing anything else. You could have been, chose not to plug into you for yourself. And so today's topic we're speaking on is women's health. Now, if you're a woman, of course, you're welcome to listen. A man, of course, you have women in your family, in your lives. Of course, you can take this information and pass it on to others, because they could be information that could be of help to an individual that you want to empower in their health. And so, as I share this with you, we represent a particular brand, and we're healthier lifestyle enthusiasts, but also we are consultants. And we also have an ability to share the responsibility to share this information with you that you can take away and determine if it's the best solution for you. So, I normally capture different areas, not just for the company that we represent, but a well rounded information I get from credible sites like Harvard. Sometimes I go to Yale website. I go to pubmed.gov. I go to credible sites that we know they actually have studies that there's no financial gain, but also that they share information peer to peer that we also have privy to because it's available to the public. And so what I share with you now, just give me 1 second. Let me just share with you my slides. I'm a visual person, so hopefully you are too. And of course, here we go. Perfect. So hopefully you can see what I'm seeing. All right. So the theme of our health talk the main theme is creating a path to a healthier lifestyle, but today's topic is on women's health. And so just keep in mind, it doesn't matter what age or stage in your life you are, health is super important. There's an impact to everything that we do, from the way we think, the way we sleep, the what we eat, the way we move, the way, and like a friend of ours, a mentor, Dr. Bukowski, he practices he always advocate on the Magnificent Seven, and those are some of the seven that I mentioned. And one of course, is that you have, think, eat, sleep, how you basically operate your everyday life, including how you have your BMs, your how you poop. So these are all things that that sometimes are taboo in some cultures. We don't speak about those things. We experience them and we sometimes suffer alone. And of course, there's stigmas to certain things. So health is not just where you're plugging into a health system, because sometimes there's a term that they call, it's not a health care system, it's a sick care system. So basically just you're looking at ways of, treating the symptoms, but not the cause. So you being proactive with your health to prevent or having preventive measures is super important. So the impact on us, especially as women, there are certain things that impact us more so than men. And so as I share this with you, I would love to have you make a new pledge for yourself for 2026, that you will be proactive, and that's a pledge for myself, recommitting to myself, not a resolution, but recommitting to your own health and to recommitting to your self-care, because you are your biggest investment. So not only are you trying to balance your physical, mental, spiritual health, your emotional health, all of these go hand in hand. And when things are off or imbalance, this is where the body is not at ease. It's called disease. So if we think of the body's not at ease, it's imbalanced, perfect storm for something to happen that you don't want to happen in a negative way or impact to your body. So we speak on women's health today, and being mindful is one of them, practicing mindfulness and being self-aware of where you are in the state of your health. You may not have all the answers, but at least you can actually identify some of the key things that are happening with you. And as we speak about women's health at any age, at any stage, it's basically any culture. It's not illness is not a respecter of age, height, gender, your culture, your ethnicity. It doesn't matter. It impacts us, and sometimes in the same way that you would, rather the most unlikely things that you think they're so similar in circumstances or in symptoms. But what I want to ask you a question, why do you think women's health is important? And if you want to put a note in the chat, you can certainly do that. I'd love to read your feedback. But why is it important? But first of all, we need to be aware, and we know we look on the outside, and sometimes you look okay, you're fine, you don't feel fine, but you look fine, or both, you don't look fine, don't feel well, and of course, it's actually displaying on your skin, your hair, your internal organs. All of these are impacting now. If you're not mindful, if you're not aware, if you're not placing the importance on the things that you need to do to be proactive with your health, then of course it can be a domino effect. And it's not a win-win situation, it's a lose-lose situation. So first of all, it doesn't matter, of course, your age. Always check your numbers. Make sure, at least if you know, especially if you're a higher risk within your family based on age, gender, ethnicity, know your numbers. For example, your weight, not really obsessing about it, but ever so often check your weight to make sure that you are, within the ideal weight for your height. Not obsessing about weight loss, weight gain, but making sure that you're a healthy weight. Checking your blood pressure, of course, checking your cholesterol. This is true. You're checking through your blood work. That means if you don't have a family doctor, go to a walking clinic. Have them give you requisitions for you can actually do your blood work. It doesn't matter who you speak to in the way of guessing what your weight is or what you think you're okay, how you feel, because you're not having any severe fluctuation with your blood pressure, but it could be some underlying threats that can happen where the blood pressure just drops too low or goes too high in a matter of seconds. And the cholesterol, of course, you can have the bad cholesterol, especially that LDL or bad cholesterol can impact you, especially with your dietary, your what you do in the way of your consumption of food. But this is not only just for keeping track of your numbers in this way, there's other things you can keep track of, for example, like your sleep, other things as well. So there are other things I want to share with you in the way of the women's health. I'm going to touch on a couple of them, not all, but these are more dominant areas that impact most women. And you may be surprised that especially in our community, in our Black community, some of these conditions are more in numbers than your counterpart. So things like polycystic ovaries, thyroid disorder, UTIs, urinary tract infection can happen. More so in some individuals, you may think it's something that you can not everyone has in the way of developing these things. But for example, if you are may have diabetes, you can have more prone, more exposure or symptoms, I should say, that can cause you to have more UTIs. And there's other things too as well. Menstrual irregularities, sorry, my tongue is working here. Menstrual irregularities. Something's wrong with my tongue today. So endometriosis, uh, breast cancer, you have issues with more lumps in your breast, osteoporosis, cervical cancer, things like that, postpartum depression, which is something that a lot of people don't speak about because it's considered, sort of like a taboo, or you may be sort of judged because you may have this experience and you're afraid to speak about it. And some cases infertility. So these are some of the things. I won't speak on all, but I'm going to highlight a few. I do have some recordings of some of these, like a breakdown for each area in previous health talks. And of course, you feel free to go back and check. We have a Facebook group. It is invite only. It's a private group, so we can protect our community in a sense. But they're all there archived, and you certainly can go through at your own leisure, your own time, and to be able to go through and look for a specific topic that may be of interest to you. But one of the things for PCOS is one of the things we spoke about as common issues is women who have PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome. Some of the tips that I can share with you for diet and exercise is like looking at food that will be recommended for what you're experiencing. So, for example, whole grains, chickpeas, beans, some lentils, what we call them legumes, milk if you can have milk. If you have an issue with dairy, of course, you can try to get, a substitute for that. Yogurt if you can, making sure it's a good yogurt that has less sugar or no sugar at all. Some type of fruits, pastas, noodles, and so forth. But keep in mind there's a limit to what you can consume in carbohydrates because that can also, it has to have a good balance, but make sure you combine it with protein, the good protein, and the fats as well. Regular exercise is super important for people who have PCOS. It helps to counteract the insulin resistance. Now, we speak about insulin resistance in those who have PCOS. Individuals who are diabetic, with other health condition can actually have insulin resistance as well. But in this case, we're speaking about PCOS. This can lead to weight loss, which can help if you do the consistent diet and exercise, not dieting for losing weight, but eating healthier, making healthier choices and more movement. It can actually help you with regulating your weight. Now, if you have issues with insulin, which is linked to your PCOS, what this can help to do is counteract it. So balancing your weight in a way of weight loss, regulating your weight, and of course, regulating your menstrual cycle, because this is a big issue for individuals who have this particular symptoms, especially how your cycles are not as regular. This can also improve the chance of achieving pregnancy in some cases, depending on your genetic makeup. So PCOS, it ranges in commonly prescribed medications in most cases. Women who take the proactive way, not only medication, but moving and eating right. What we recommend is to speak to your doctor. If you don't have a family doctor, of course, they're walking clinics that can actually see you and you speak of your conditions, and they can maybe try to refer you to a specialist. And that's actually available to those of us here in North America, especially Canada, that I know of. And of course, they can help you with a certain type of treatments, but keep in mind some medications, well, all medications on the planet have side effects. So please, please, please be aware of what the side effects are because it impacts some and some there's no issues. So it varies from person to person. Another issue that you may have as a woman is a thyroid issue that could be an underlying issue that you're not even aware of because you may not have been diagnosed with that. Unless you sort of share what your symptoms are with your doctor. And of course, if you're persistent and advise your doctor how you're feeling, then they will give you a sort of like a requisition to see a specialist to check your thyroids. Now, it's not something that's checked all the time. It could be missed, but of course, know your body, see how you're feeling, track it, and of course, articulate what you're feeling, because the doctors will give you the best educated advice, but they're only limited to the knowledge that they know in that area. So, of course, you need to be able to sort of share without fear of judgment and express to them how you're feeling so you can get the right treatment or the right diagnosis from a particular specialist in that area. The thyroid itself, there's a certain types of hormones that influence your metabolism, your growth and development, thermoregulation, your heart rate, protein synthesis, mental health. But of course, every individual, every woman, there's a unique way that it actually impacts you. So your function implications in women mostly impacts your menstrual cycle and reproductive health, but many other things as well. Of course, these could be underlying symptoms that you're not aware of that may be linked to thyroid issue. So one of the examples is hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism. So I'm showing you a quick screen of hypothyroidism. I do have a whole presentation on both hypo and hyper, especially how it impacts you in different ways, and other types of issues that are linked to thyroid disorder. So sometimes you might feel overly fatigued, you may have a cold intolerance, weight gain unexplained. You can have constipation. In hyper, you may have excess weight loss. Hair loss could be an issue. Sometimes you think you're going through menopause or premenopause where you have hair loss, but it could actually be your thyroid issue. You may have a brain fog. Again, brain fog hits individuals in different ways. It could be where you're going through the season or the change of life, like premenopause or menopause, but also it could be you could be sleep deprived. So pay attention to connect the dots. It could be other things as well that could be impacting you. Stress can be an indicator. Sometimes you may have issues like with hair loss, but brain fog is something that can happen where you're thinking, oh my gosh, I can't have a collective thought, something's going on, but you're not putting two and two together because you're sort of not realizing this could be an underlying condition. Skin dryness can happen, and nail changes, of course, irregular menstrual cycle. See how the connectivity happens here. So, for example, we spoke about PCOS with irregular menstrual cycle, thyroid issue. Some of the issues are connected or similar. But these issues where you have a thyroid disorder can not only impact you in those ways I mentioned, but things like your high cholesterol can be elevated. Cardiovascular system can be impacted, right? Where your heart rate is impacted, where it becomes slower than regular beats. Reproduction health, your regular menstrual, fertility problems in some cases, complication of pregnancy if you're in that age where you are able to have a pregnancy full term, if there's issues of miscarriage and so forth. Mental health is a big thing, not only just for thyroid, but for other health conditions because it can impact you in many ways. Some of the issues or the symptoms you're having could be similar. For example, depression, mood swings, feeling so lethargic, have this depression, memory problems and so forth are very common. It talks about the brain fog. Cognitive impairment is also one of the things. So you have a slow thinking, a slow response, difficulty concentrating. These are also things you can actually track. So I would encourage you to write down or keep a journal of what you're experiencing so that you can actually give your full report to your doctor. Because when you tell them all this information, then they can actually rule out certain things and they can direct to the right specialist. Understanding your thyroid disorder is super important, especially in women, because we have so many other symptoms that your male counterpart may not experience, like, for example, menopause, premenopause, menstrual cycle, and you're having all of these things plus thyroid issues. So not only is it impacting your skin and your hair, but your joints can be impacted with stiffness. You can actually have muscle weakness, facial swelling. So all of these things are like a domino effect of symptoms that you really can't quite put your finger on. So another thing as well is to consider when you're being mindful with your health, what you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're sleeping, how you're moving, is what you need to do. So some of the recommendations are found on the credible sites I mentioned earlier. As a health enthusiast, I'm very eager and very, very passionate about, sort of finding the right information that are credible that you can actually refer to. And if, of course, the link is not here, you'd like me to share with you, I can certainly do that. Be more than happy to do so. But thinking about how to maintaining a healthy thyroid is to eat a balanced diet. Now, if you're overly stressed, you're not sleeping, you find that your cortisol levels might be higher. You find you may be more prone to eating things that are processed versus that are not processed. So you gravitate to the easy fix for a dopamine fix. You find that you're going towards the things that are not healthy for you because the emotional part of you is sort of craving those things for an easy comfort. Now, being mindful of what you're consuming, planning ahead will help you to sort of um, allow your body, your mind, your spirit to make the right choices. So if you're eating a balanced diet, you have less symptoms happening, reoccurrence of some of the not so good symptoms that are going to have a negative impact on your body and also your mind, your mental health. Managing your stress, having some things that, like a coping mechanism. I call it my arsenal of like coping mechanism in my virtual basket. So things like, if you're going to go for a walk or you have like an accountability partner or someone you can reach out to, making sure that you have the ability to have the not all of these things that are not good for you, the processed food outside of your home, not in your home in your cupboard, so that rules out temptation, especially if you're stressed. Learning how to maybe listening to music or an audiobook or something that'll help you to calm you down. Things like meditation could help you as well. So these could be things, the way of things you can utilize to manage your stress or to reduce your stress. Maintaining a healthy weight is something we all have challenge with from time to time. Also being mindful of what you put in is what comes out. What you consume impacts your mental health and your physical health. Also, regular checkups. It's easy to say, sometimes hard to implement, especially when life gets crazy, especially if you're caring for someone, either an elderly, child. You sort of put yourself on the back burner, but also remember in your calendar, have your regular checkups, book in advance, things that you need to do. Another part of a condition that can actually impact your health is osteoporosis, especially in women. Why are women more at risk? Is thinking of when we go through as a woman certain seasons in life, especially if you're going through premenopause or menopause, this can actually deplete your bone density. But most people are impacted in different ways. So let's say, for example, you had, been diagnosed with cancer and you have to take radiation or chemo or both. That impacts and robs your bones of the nutrients it needs. Of course, your bone density isn't as great because it has been impacted with these type of therapy that you're taking. If most people who aren't as active or there's still a lot, they're not moving, they're not strengthening their bone density. These can happen where you have more prone to falls and injuries, especially as you get older. Hormone imbalance is another thing that can impact you. So women who are going through different seasons in life, they may be more prone to osteoporosis at an earlier stage than most men. Although men do get osteoporosis, depending on your health, your health within your body, you think of the things that can cause these things that you think you have no control over, but you can. So being proactive, we know that seasons of life happen, especially with women. You're going through your menstrual cycle, you're going through your premenopause, you're going through menopause and postmenopause. This is also like a double whammy, more than a double whammy. And so your hormones imbalance, you don't realize why you're so tired, why you're so cranky, why you have all these mood swings. And again, to compound that, you may have other issues like, risk of osteoporosis. So these are things that you don't even realize because you may not be going for your regular checkup until it may be at a stage where may not be reversible. But being mindful, being proactive is super important. So if you aren't aware of, 80% of osteoporosis cases affect women more so than men. So protecting your bones protects your future. is so important. So thinking of certain things that can impact you that you're higher risk as a woman could be, of course, I mentioned menopause, your age. Once you start hitting 20, you have your peak bone mass and it declines over time. So the bone resorption surpasses bone formation, so to speak, is that if you're not doing the things to strengthen your bones, strengthen your giving yourself the right nutrients for greater bone density, then these are things you have to be mindful of. Genetics, it plays a very big role in some cases. Bone structure and size. So women that tend to be smaller and thinner than men. So of course, it's a higher risk for osteoporosis. Giving yourself the right nutrients. So if you're nutrient deficient in certain types of nutrients that the body needs, it can rob you for crucial bone health. So for example, vitamin D3, also calcium. If you take both, actually with both, your body is able to absorb more. There's also other superfoods you can take along with vitamin D and calcium to help your body absorb more of or keep more of the nutrient than simply passing it through. Another thing as well is your lifestyle factor, right? So smoking, excessive alcohol, also this consumption, overconsumption of this type of things can contribute to bone weakening, and you're not even aware of it until it's sometimes too late. One of the things too as well, most people who smoke tend to suppress their appetite. They may lose weight. Some may do. Of course, the smaller you are, in the sense of not getting the right nutrients, not in size, but basically your bone structure, you have a higher risk because your body may not be getting the nutrients. I'm not referring to the size of the person, I'm talking about the density and the frame, the bone structure and size. So there's also, as well, as I mentioned, in the breakdown of common type of illnesses that women can actually experience. One of them is, especially if you have had children, you would know, postpartum depression actually impacts women, especially women of minority Black women, more so than their counterpart. So Hispanics, Blacks, Indigenous, they actually have a higher risk of experiencing postpartum depression. So what are the symptoms? Low mood, fatigue, anxiety, negative thoughts. So you're sort of in your head with negative thoughts that can impact your overall well-being. Feeling of anxiety, feelings of guilt, avoiding people, because that's what happens when you feel depressed. And postpartum is something that may go undiagnosed for many people because it's something that may have a stigma, especially in your community, especially with the older generations may sort of brush it off and say, oh my goodness, I've had how many children? I've never had that, where everyone's body is different. So you sort of suppress it and you tend to isolate yourself. So being mindful of postpartum depression, if you identify in someone in your circle, pay attention to them. They may not share how they're feeling, but gently sort of encourage them, especially if you find that they're a private person, but sort of suggest to them to go for help and to seek help when needed. So these are things also to be mindful of within the umbrella of women's health. Now, especially if you had multiple births, you may not have been able to go through the process and to be able to get through postpartum, and then you have another child or two or three, and you not really sort of address how you're feeling, the symptoms for postpartum. It can actually go beyond postpartum and be a long-term impact with your depression and mental health. So be mindful of that. Also, for cervical cancer, all types of cancer, screening is so important. I did my screening. It's not the most pleasant, but of course I did my screening this year. My cousin, who is a breast cancer survivor, she has to do hers twice a year. And thank God she's 7 years cancer free now. And of course, it's something that is needed. There's topics, conversations about the need for breast cancer, especially if you are under 50, screening may not be offered to you. I'm not sure why it's at 50, but there are individuals who are having diagnosis of breast cancer from the age of 20, maybe 18 and older. And in some cases, it is too late because they've not been tested. So there's different types of tests you can do at home, but also screening is so important, but there's options you can take. Um, in this case, having a good community of individuals you can speak to if you've had a cancer scare or been diagnosed with cancer, or if you're not sure, speak to your doctor. Find out what are the pros for having early testing for cancer, so for breast cancer, also for cervical cancer, especially if individuals have a history of the cervical cancer scare, or they've been tested, or they have a family history of that. Genetics is a big conversation around that with cervical cancer. But of course, right now here in Canada, there is the pap smear you can have up to a certain age, and then they will have the HPV test, which is every 5 years now. There's something new in Ontario, but in every province, every country, every city, it's different. So check with your practitioner, health practitioner, as to what's the best outcome for you. Another thing as well to be mindful of, not only are you aware if you have in your family, you've had a health scare about certain conditions that I've spoken about. As I mentioned, I will not be speaking on it because there's so many topics on women's health. I just chose a few. And we can have other conversations in the weeks ahead for 2026. Any recommendations you may want to, any topics you may want to have me cover, right? But here, knowing movement is important. I just spoke to my sister today and we made a pact that we're going to start. She's pretty good. As to get back on the track, right? So having a workout body or having accountability to get you in the mood or mode of physical activity, to get in that rhythm, that routine will help you with the longevity of your life as you age. So starting now, it doesn't matter what stage. You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even in your 70s or 80s. It's never too late. I have a very good friend. She started swimming at age, I think 55 or 60, sorry, 60, and she swims like a fish. And I'm always envious. She does 20 laps in the public pool. I'm thinking, how can you do that? And she's almost 70, right? But again, it took practice. So learning, baby steps, walking, running, if you can, swimming, if you're able to, do something new for yourself, sort of spiced up with your workout. If you like group exercise, do it. Do something for yourself, at least 30 minutes a day. And if you can do every day, great. If not, start off for 3 days. All right. Give yourself that challenge. Do half an hour 3 days a week, then increase it depending on how you're feeling. If you have underlying condition, of course, take it easy, work at your pace, do low impact instead of high impact. So you sort of put something together that can help you to be able to have a healthier stage of life as you go through the different stages in your life. One thing that is so important, and this is something I have had a challenge with over the years, is sleep shortfalls. It's going to lead to a range of health problems. Being mindful of that, being, sort of proactive in the sense of planning your sleep time. If you have shift work in the way of nights versus days, that can also impact your sleep pattern. If you find that you're eating foods that are processed too late at night, it can impact your sleep. You're going through the stage of life like menopause, premenopause, you may not be able to sleep throughout. You may have insomnia. I'm not realizing, why do I have insomnia? Why am I not able to sleep? Why do I feel so tired, but I slept? So many different things. So paying attention, I'm learning to do that. I'm very proud of myself for the last 4 or 5 weeks. I'm actually able to get 8 hours of sleep. So I'm going to pat myself on the shoulder, right? I spoke to my friend and I said, there are times when I've slept like 5 hours, 4 hours, and then I get up. So this is something that happens with the weather, with life, with stress, things that you're thinking of or worrying about can impact your sleep. So be mindful, paying attention of that. Because some of the things that can happen is that you're more prone to illnesses, right? You may be more prone to catching a cold or gaining weight more easily because your body has not had chance to rest and to repair itself. You have a higher risk of heart disease or diabetes, and also you can actually increase your chances of hypertension or a high blood pressure because your body's not sleeping the way, it's not resting the way it should. So having an average of about 7 to 9 hours of sleep is very good if you can master 9 hours. For myself, I know my body. If I sleep more than 8, I get a headache. So you may say, okay, and I don't sleep enough, I get a headache. Or I find that, something else happens with my body. And you exactly how your body operates on the amount of sleep that you need. But keep in mind, more than 60% of women regularly fall short of that goal, especially if you've had a baby, sleep deprived, plus you're working, taking care of the family, going through different seasons in life. It can happen, right? But if you want to consider the risk, why it's important, one of the things I can share with you is that women need more sleep for sure than men. Um, at least 40% more are likely to experience insomnia in women. For example, you have a menstrual cycle, pain wakes you up at night. You may have certain types of symptoms happening to you whilst you're pregnant, you're awake. It wakes you up. So you're not in that REM sleep. You're going through menopause or the cycle of pre, post, or menopause. You wake up with different things like night sweats. You might have restless leg syndrome. You find that you may have other issues that would wake you up so you're not in a REM sleep. So these are things, some of the areas that may cause women to be more sleep deprived, hence the reason they need more sleep. So women are about 40% more likely to experience insomnia compared to men because of these certain types of situations they're having. But practicing healthy sleep habits can help women get the sleep they need. There's actually like trackers you can have on your watch or on your phone to sort of help you to track your sleep to see, your cycle or a pattern, and check to see how you're actually sleeping, how you're feeling when you get up versus before you go to bed. So many things to be mindful of. So the sleep problems happen in many ways. Falling asleep and staying asleep and waking up too early, suffering from sleep apnea can happen without you realizing that you have issues with your sleep pattern or your depth of your sleep. Things that happen in the sense of better sleep would mean fewer symptoms. Poor sleep would mean worse symptoms in your health. So it's a lose-lose situation when you're long-term, when you're not sleeping sufficiently, and then all of a sudden you have a health crisis. So 4 to 6% of people who are going through postmenopausal experience insomnia. What do you do? I can share that with you in a moment. Also, 20% of women who have developed sleep apnea during menopause transition, it actually is a very high percentage of people who don't even realize that they have sleep apnea because it's not something that's easily detectable. Unless you have a partner who will sort of mention to you, oh my gosh, you were sleeping and you stopped breathing for a few seconds, and this was happening to you. So unless you were a family member who knows as well, because as you're sleeping, you can't tell. But also for menopause, if you're taking, it's sort of like the wellness approach, being mindful, being self-aware. Take the extra care during that shift. If you're on your way there that season, or you've had individuals in your family who are experiencing this, which is different symptoms, you may not have the night sweats. You may not even you may not have a hot flash. You may have insomnia. You may have other things. So every woman has a different experience. And so if you're going through the shift, it can trigger sleep issues for many women. And so being extra careful to practice healthy sleep habits, eating the right things, staying away from foods that'll keep you up, like extra processed food, sugary things, extra salt, all these things before you go to bed. These things can rob you of your sleep, so be mindful of that. Certain type of medications, even though may work short term, may not work long term, and may have certain types of negative impact. But practice things like meditation, deep breathing, even wearing your eye mask to sleep, listening to some type of sort of instrumental, even sounds for rain or some sort of megahertz sound, so it can help you to sleep. And try not to go to sleep throughout the day, too long period, short naps, if you can't avoid it. Another thing to do to avoid sleep disruptors, sleep deprivation, is to avoid sleep disruptors. So, for example, things like caffeinated beverages, like pop, and all these boosters to keep you awake, alcohol, excessive amount of nicotine. And these can have all negative impact on sleep. There's actually products out there that have infusions of superfood that can negate the negative effect of caffeine. So there are things you can do to be able to avoid those. And even though you're enjoying your favorite beverage of choice, avoid some substances in the hours before bedtime that can promote better sleep, including women experiencing hot flashes or menopause. So there are certain things that can tell you to be mindful. I found this actual in on the American Heart Associate study that shows that individuals who have long-term insomnia or chronic insomnia or sleep apnea issues, they would tend to, not sleep apnea, sorry, insomnia, they may tend to gravitate to like melatonin, the capsule form. I've actually learned from with my mom and her doctor that because she had an issue with not sleeping well for 2 weeks after she came from the hospital at one time, she could have it for 2 weeks, but after a while, the body gets accustomed to it. But taking melatonin over a longer period of time can actually lead to heart damage. So it can actually have a higher risk of heart failure. So be mindful of that. Even if you're taking over-the-counter melatonin supplements, be mindful because there are certain individuals who, over that study, a 5-year study, shows a high amount of individuals who have insomnia and they simply take over the counter without seeking their doctor's advice, especially if they have an underlying condition, can actually be diagnosed with heart failure over time. So keep in mind, this is not a peer-to-peer review, but it was research that was done through the American Heart Association. So what are the benefits of sleep? Well, keeping in mind, not only does it feel good what you sleep and you get up refreshed, hopefully, the studies have shown that 21% are less likely to die from a heart disease, 90% less likely to die from cancer, 30% less likely to die from any reason that may happen, like, for example, stroke and other sort of symptoms. But keep in mind as well, not only are you sleeping, moving right, thinking right, meditating, breathing, all of these things in the way of a healthier you as you age in different stages of your life. There are things called superfood that I've learned of the last, I think, maybe 15 years or so, that are really good for the body and the brain, the gut, and for your mental health. So there are things that I tend to gravitate to. For example, I love blueberries. I love well, I like spirulina. Not love it, but I take it because I know it's really good for the body. There's so many things like pumpkin seeds, but there are other things too as well that are under the class of superfoods that are really good in providing your body the right type of antioxidants, nutrients, minerals, vitamins that are even 10x or more in the way of nutrients than your regular food you eat for fuel consumption. Because we know that food gives you the right fuel, gives you some nutrients, but we know that some foods that you eat, most foods on the planet, are depleted of the nutrients because of the soil depletion. Nutrients depleted in the soil. So normally most foods or all foods get nutrients from the soil. And if it's depleted, then what you consume is what the body receives in the way of nutrients. And if it doesn't get enough, then think of superfood. So superfoods like reishi, spirulina, goji berry, aloe vera, all these things are really good. There's so many superfoods on the market, but I learned about this superfood about 14 years ago when I consumed a beverage that had an infusion of reishi. So what is reishi? Reishi is a superfood indigenous to Asia. And like how you would know of ginseng that's local in certain countries in the Caribbean, here in Canada and other places, you know of things like spirulina, which is you've heard recently. There's so many superfoods. But Ganoderma lucidum, which is also known as reishi, has been around for thousands and thousands of years. There actually is a PubMed.gov website that over 3,000 case studies have been done just on this one superfood. Think of the hierarchy of all superfoods. Reishi is number one on the planet so far. And so all the studies that have shown, and I'm going to share with you in a few seconds as to what that means, is that there are certain studies that have been done on particular how it interacts with medication, how it helps you in certain health crisis. For example, you're going through things like menopause or cancer, other things like that. I'm going to share with you in a second how it's been known to alleviate, to help or improve the symptoms. There's two other superfoods as well, which is called lion's mane and cordyceps. And these are all under the umbrella of medicinal mushroom, but the reishi itself is considered under two labels: medicinal mushroom, medicinal, and also food. So it's classed under those two. So it's really good in the way of in the amount of nutrients you're getting for your body. So just to put in the comparison, you may like avocados. You may like green tea. I love green tea. Cinnamon. We know, grew up with cinnamon, right? The barks. Chocolate. That's my middle name, right? But they have a good amount of antioxidants that your body needs. But how much of each of these can you have in a given day? Right. So, for example, a cup of a cup of green tea, you may have the equivalent of 54 anti in the way of the measurement, 54 antioxidants versus a single serving of the Ganoderma lucidum, which is called reishi, 150 is like a 3-to-1. So you get triple the amount of the antioxidants versus having several cups of green tea. And also, for example, cinnamon. You can't have cinnamon throughout the day, all day, but you need at least 10 to 12 in the way of the comparison, in the way of serving versus a simple cup of reishi, sorry, a serving of reishi. So the amount of nutrients you're getting, your body's getting all of these nutrients, all of these amino acids, all of these antioxidants, all these minerals that will support not only your quality of sleep, help to your body healing capacity, support your immune system, because as we sleep, your body needs to, if you sleep enough, your body can actually sort of repair itself in a way, especially your immune system. But if you're not sleeping enough, your immune system is impacted, right? Your mental alertness actually helps improve that, helps to naturally detoxify the body of toxins, especially if you're taking medication. So it has so many benefits in what I'm sharing here with you, but I'm just going to share you a snippet. So the medicinal mushroom is very high in the way of nutrients, very low in the calories and fat. So the compounds such as carbohydrates, proteins, fibers, and vitamins, they're used to treat many ailments that are people have been diagnosed with. So what I'm sharing you right now, these are all studies that have been done through PubMed.gov. Now, this is not part of our brand, but it's sort of a third party where we got all this valuable information that you can actually take here at your own leisure to be able to get more information in depth. And these are all studies that have been done by peer-to-peer. They have no financial gain. It's basically for information purposes, but people can be aware of what these findings are. So Ganoderma lucidum is anti-inflammatory. So, for example, people are going through osteoporosis, rheumatoid arthritis, all these things that your body can have when it's fully inflamed. It actually reduces the inflammation in the body. It also helps to give your body the right amount of antioxidants because of the high amount of polysaccharides. It helps reduce anxiety. I mentioned that anxiety can actually occur, especially if you're going through certain things in your life, like menopause, sleep deprivation, and so forth. Helps reduce the pain, manage your pain, of course, depression. It helps in individuals who have, there's something called brain fog. That you've heard of, you see your brain is not moving the way it's supposed to, or your cognition is off. So what it actually helps with is improve your cognitive impairment. Not only this mushroom, which is called reishi, but also helps to repair your neuronal damage. So if you have neurodegeneration, it protects it. If you have nerve damage, central nervous system is impacted. So not only is your cognition is helping you, but also your central nervous system. There's a saying from a friend of ours that says, whatever's holding your central nervous system hostage is holding you hostage. So if your body's highly inflamed, your central nervous system is out of whack, you find that you are having all of these type of symptoms because of that. This actually helps to alleviate those things. Not only is improving your autoimmune system, it also helps you with many of the things. But one of the things we found out is that the Ganoderma lucidum, there's no negative side effects if you're taking pharmaceutical medication. So there's no negative interaction. And I share that with you because my mom, who was diabetic, high blood pressure, and she had a heart murmur, heart palpitation. She had to take a beta block, She had to take her metformin, and she also had to take her high blood pressure pill. When she was consuming those, we were able to give her this particular superfood to help her sort of her kidneys, her liver, because these things can damage your organs over time with pharmaceutical medication. And we even spoke with a pharmacist, her local pharmacist, and asked, we want to give this to her, and they said it was okay. So I'm very confident this has actually helped many people, but also knowing the fact that it helps promote sleep. It helps with the gut-brain axis. It helps with your healing of your gut. Most individuals who have an issue with their I call it the core, which is your gastrointestinal, your gut. If that is actually compromised, it impacts other areas of your body. If your brain is not signaling to your gut, then it's out of balance. You can actually impact your sleep as well. So if you're consuming Ganada lucida, helps you with your serotonin associated pathway. It means your body's getting what it needs, the nutrients it needs, it stays in their body, and it does what it's supposed to do. Because everyone's body is different, it speaks differently to you. Of course, your body does not lie, it tells you exactly how it's feeling. You may not be able to put two and two together, but at least it tells you that something's not quite right. So the actual this superfood, it actually helps if you have fatigue. So it's anti-fatigue. It aids in your sleeping. So over time, as you consume it consistently, you're able to see the changes and feel it in your body. Of course, everyone's different. So whatever it does for you may be different for me, but paying attention to your body and being mindful is the most important thing as you're making a shift in your health. Also, it helps in improving sleep disturbances, helps in improving restlessness, insomnia, forgetfulness. Any type of sleep disorder helps with. It's known to help with the studies. Also for your memory impairment, it's also considered anti-aging and helps with prolonging your life. So one of the things it does as well is it actually can measure if you have an app or some type of device to track your sleep pattern. You can actually tell the difference because you have reports that you can able to check to see that it can impact your or improve your health through your sleep pattern. So your significant change in decreasing latency, increasing sleeping time. You may be able to shift from non-REM sleep to REM sleep, instead of a light sleep to a deeper sleep. So it aids in many other things, but as insomnia is a major thing for many people, not just for women, but in this case, we're speaking about women. Also helps with individuals who have chronic insomnia, not just insomnia. It's been known to help with that. And so there's three stages. The actual mushroom is grown, the Ganada lucidum. The actual mycelium is the rooting body, roots of the actual mushroom. The fruiting body is called Gandum lucidum or reishi. And there's also little seeds called spores. We call them sporoderm. They actually are those that grow and sort of release back into nature on plum logs or whatever trees it's on. And they actually regenerate. So it's like the cycle of life. So this is known to help with individuals who have depression or depression-like behaviors. In this case, for example, we spoke about postpartum depression, anxiety, stress. All these things actually have been known to alleviate. Another thing is what I want to share with you is that I spoke about individuals whose metabolism has a disorder or is impacting you, like for example, thyroid issue or PCOS issue, other things like that. Guidance actually help to accelerate to improve your metabolism. It helps to fight obesity, but also it goes hand in hand with what you're doing, what you're eating, how you're moving. So it's sort of a complement to what your lifestyle you change your lifestyle will be. So it also known to slows down the aging process. And of course, it improves many other things in your body and also protects your organs. It has a lot of antioxidants, so it actually helps with cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, and there's something called oxidative stress. So if you think of yourself, let's say a tomato, and over time the tomato sort of rots. So if your cell has a lot too much free radicals, it's not receiving what it needs in the way of nutrients. It can change from a healthy cell to an oxidative stress type cell that sort of breaks down your cells, way more prone to illness. So this actually helps with removing oxidative stress from your body, helps you in the way of balancing your body, giving it the right nutrients. And so if you're taking other supplements, for example, the Ganoderma helps your body to absorb those things, like, for example, magnesium, calcium, vitamin D, and so forth. The actual Ganoderma itself is known to help with aging. But what does that mean? Not just aging on the exterior, but also reversing the aging to helping you to slow down the aging on your internal self, your organs, your cells, your blood, all of that, your health, your gut, your brain. This is what we speak of. And so not just the exterior, because although your skin is the healthiest organ, so it's the largest organ, it is one of the things that's a telling sign of what's going on your interior. So cordyceps, I mentioned before, is another mushroom that we know of. It's known to help with longevity, immunity, your appetite, but also your libido. So a lot of individuals who are going through things like the seasons of life, like menopause, premenopause, postmenopause, they may have a loss of libido. They find that they have no, all that is gone. They feel overly fatigued. The cordyceps helps to reverse that or change that, alleviates that. Your memory, of course, your sleep. We know the cordyceps helps with sleep, improving that. But people who have suffered with depression, like postpartum depression, or any type of depression, is actually known to improve the symptoms, the sleep symptoms of those who are going through this type of situation like depression. If you're going through if you have mild stress or chronic mild stress, it actually helps to alleviate that. The cordyceps is also known as or considered as a health promoting food. It also protects the cells, so protects against oxidative stress, and it also prevents oxidative stress if you're consuming it more frequently. The other thing as well that I want to share with you is when you're consuming these things, think of it as a food supplement you're consuming. So every day you're consuming it, it's helping your body over time. Is this not a miracle cure? It is something you're doing to add to your healthier lifestyle, the changes you're making, and over time you start noticing things as your body is showing you and indicating to you. The osteoporosis I spoke of before, where the bone density is impacted, this actually is known over time to help prevent the disuse of osteoporosis. It helps to prevent bone loss or to slow down if you've already been diagnosed, to slow it down. For those who have significant loss in estrogen, especially going through the seasons, like for example, your seasons of life, menopause and so forth, this actually helps your body to be able to, with the bone density. And the reason I share that with you is for going back to the capsule, the spores, my cousin who was diagnosed with breast cancer, one of the main things they do, of course, is check your bone density before they start therapy. And so they checked it, and then after for bouts of 20 bouts of her radiation, they tested her bones again, and they were very surprised that there was no bone loss, and her bone density increased. And that I was 16-year-old, and she's actually 16. So in her case, this is what she came back and told me, which I'm so happy about. Because not only are you taking therapy for your to help you with the cancer journey you're on, but there's other risk factors as well, including depression, sort of going through those cycles of emotion. And of course, you've been told that you have issues with your bone density. So knowing that you're being proactive is very helpful, of being mindful, and of course, paying attention to your body. The cordyceps itself, what does it do? Well, the main thing it does is decrease bone resorption. It increases bone formation, it increases bone weight, it enhances immune function. And these are things that you don't realize are happening on the inside until it's too late. So doing these things actually helps. And if you're taking any of the medication in type of therapy, this actually is a good complement to what you're doing. Lion's mane is another thing as well. I want to share with you. It's one of my new favorites. You can actually have reishi organism on its own or together with these two, or just maybe cordyceps and the reishi. But these three together, not only is it helping with your cognition, it helps with your stress, moodiness, mental energy. It helps with improving your function, especially if you're going through a cancer journey. It actually is anti-cancer as well, like the other two. Anti has many antioxidant properties, also reduces oxidative stress. So these three work in harmony together. I spoke about the gut brain axis, the stress that your body goes under, especially that impacts the body. Your appetite both increases or decreases, suppresses your mood, your digestion tract, your sleep, pain sensations, all impacted if it's in balance with the gut brain axis. And if you think of it this way, if one thing is off, then everything else is off. Domino effect is not going to help you for your longevity of life. So knowing what you're consuming, what you can add to it, complement will be so good. So as we go through all of this, this is part of the brand that we spoke of, which is the Organo brand that we represent. It's a brand with a purpose. And as we want to be able to impact individuals by educating, we also want to help people create a better life, healthy and richer life. So just think of it, one small choice, a lasting impact. Just making one shift, 1 degree shift in your health can actually improve your health in many, many ways. But being mindful and practicing positive wellness is so important. So think of you as adding something to your journey by incorporating, a holistic approach to holistic wellness through these supplements. It comes in many ways. For example, for myself, I love hot beverages. You may not, but the actual gandum itself is quite bitter to taste on its own, but we have a patent that's infused into all the beverages you're seeing here and more, that you don't taste the bitterness, but you get the benefits. These are just delivery mechanisms. So these are world-class, gourmet tasting hot cocoa, coffee, teas, and so forth. That's infused with these superfoods that you can actually have every day, because most people don't take the vitamins every day, but they drink something hot or cold every day. And so, of course, it comes in nutraceutical forms and capsule form for more therapeutic dosage. The spores is one of my go-to. This is what my cousin actually consumed when she was going through her cancer therapy. And of course, you can have it as well as for everyday function, everyday use. But these are all great. And as I share this with you, think of how you can improve your life for 2026. Think of what you can do in the way of having something that is natural, organically grown, has over 30 plus certification, something that's not grown in plastic bags like other brands, something that can give your body the right nutrients it needs to be able to have a longer and healthier life. And as we're going through all of this, think of how you can impact your family's life, your life in a positive way. And as you're doing that, you can actually check off as to, okay, these are the things I want to do. How can I get, to be the better version of me? Well, I would say to you, consider trying, consuming, switching your brand for at least 30, 60, or 90 days. Pay attention to your body and see what it does for you. I know for myself, it's the last 14 years of consuming this. I've seen many changes, felt many changes. We have seen so many people's life have changed. And of course, we have individuals here whose their lives have changed, but also people who have given us testimonials of their experience in their health journey. And of course, everyone is different. What you may gravitate to is another personal way of consuming. They may have a health challenge, you may not, but of course, you can feel the overall wellness. So, with that said, I want to thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, I'm actually going to go through the chat section and see what's there. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask now and before we wrap up. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time. It's great that we were able to come together on a very cold day, in some places very warm. And of course, we're able to learn to grow together. See us here next Tuesday, same time. Invite your friends. Feel free. It's education here for us to be able to learn and grow together. Take care, everyone. Have a good night.